is Mindy Yoshikawa here with Sunny Studio Stamps, and I'm here to share our Fall 2019 release. Up first, we have our colorful autumn papers. It comes with 12 unique prints on one side and 12 on the other, and 2 of each print. Here I'm just taking you through each sheet with the side A, and then the B sides have a tone-on-tone print in 6 unique colors. So we got some acorns and some pumpkins and sunflowers and apples. We have a lot of just typical fall motifs here. It's a really great versatile collection. And here's a leaf print, which can be cut down and made into a simple card, and one of my favorites, a rainbow stripe. And then on the back, all of these vibrant, luscious colors. So there's some little diagonal diamond print that's unique to this collection, and then also a tone-on-tone leaf print. So it comes there in 6 colors for each. And then in our next collection that we have, it's called Heroic Halftones, and halftones are really hot right now. And there's 4 different prints, and each print comes in 6 colors. So we have red, orange, yellow, a really beautiful lime green, and a royal blue. And these are in like sort of a sunburst type print, but with the halftone overlaid over the top, and then in black, which is new for us. We haven't had a collection with black before. And then on the back side is a halftone that goes to smaller dots in the center. So they're both great for focal point images. And then our next set of halftones does the same exact colors, but this time the halftone fades in the center on this one here. And then when you flip them over, it goes from large dot to small dot, so it fades from one color to another on the back. And I created these to go with our new superhero Super Duper stamps, but again, halftones are just amazing all by themselves, and they can be used with lots of other themes. So up next is our new embossing folders. I am so in love with these. Up first we have our Moroccan circle embossing folders, which is like just a infinity type pattern with the circles. And here I'll show you an up close. Kind of hard to tell in the video, but there's another card later that will show it even better. And then we have our oversized polka dot, which is called Lots of Dots. And there's a lot of polka dot embossing folders on the market, but this one is a little bit different with the larger dots. And I love the 6x6, so you can use it in a vertical or horizontal card. And then we have our new frilly frame dies, and these are the 5th and 6th take on our frilly frame dies. Each one comes with a unique border around the edge. There, you can use them as just the border that I'm showing there, or you can use them together with the inside portion, or you can use them together. So you can use them as a stencil. I have some cards later today where I just used them, the center part by itself as a stencil. And the beauty of these is that they can mix and match with each other. So I can use the hexagons on an outside frame that it didn't come with. And here I'm going to just kind of show all the others, since I missed creating a video last month, or excuse me, last release. So these were our very first set with the frilly frames lattice, and then our frilly frame polka dot. And then for our summer release, we had our frilly frame chevron and our frilly frame stripes. And these came with a much smaller scallop mat and a little rickrack mat. And I'm showing here how they can kind of switch, and you can trade them. So that one creates a nice tight frame. Some of them are a little bit roomier than others, just based on how big the scallop is. Our new frilly frame retro petals is nice because it comes with a straight mat that also works with our fancy frame dies. so you can layer it over our fancy frame rectangles. So I'm just pulling out a piece of like a card base for an A2 size card and showing how it's just slightly smaller than that. So it's going to measure 4 inches by 5 1/4. And here's a couple cards using them with our new Just Because stamps. It's a fun little 2x3 stamp set. And for this card, I used the Fancy Frame Retro Petals together with that, Frilly Frames Retro Petals with the Fancy Frame die there. And I filled it behind with little squares of color for a nice rainbow pattern. And this one I used the hexagon together with that label from our Fancy Frames rectangles again, and also our Fancy Frames ovals there for behind. And here's our new Elegant Leaves stamps. It comes with a really nice big thankful greeting, as well as grateful, and then a lot of words that mix and match with that. Here I have just a really graphic card. It's hard to tell in the video, but that's yellow, gray, and aqua. And then another version in a different color palette slightly. I was experimenting with colors. And here I've used our new Frilly Frame Retro Petals, and instead of using it vertically, I die cut it twice on the horizontal so that I could go completely off the edge of the card and bleed it off. And then I watercolored some leaves there using the new Elegant Leaves. And this is another one where this time I actually heat embossed some gold leaves and then watercolored the leaves in place. For this card I used the new hexagon. This is where I used it as a stencil, so I cut it out of some cheap cardstock and inked on it with a foam dauber. Here I have another card using also some more Daniel Smith watercolors. I used the same piece of watercolor paper that I had created for both of these cards, and just for one I stamped in black ink and one I stamped in gold. For this set, it's called Woodsy Autumn, and it's a great set that coordinates with so many of our previous releases. Here I've used just the images from the set, and I paired it with a rainbow stripe from our Surprise Party collection last time, as well as our Rick Rack border die and our Window Trio square dies. For this card, I have the 3 little critters that I used from our critter camp out, as well as the tree stump and pumpkins, and from our Happy Harvest and the new paper. And here I used the tree from the set as well as little raccoon to match our critter camp out, and then some new little hearts embellishments that we have, as well as this border from our Fancy Frame rectangle dies that matches with our circle Fancy Frame, so I was able to kind of mimic the same border. And here I have the new little hedgehogs from that set with some of the mushroom houses, and I masked off a border and to ink up my sky and grass, and then I flicked on colors of Copic markers for my grass texture. And here I did the same thing by masking off a border to ink up my background with some rain, and then I mitered the corners of my rainbow paper so that you could see stripes on all sides. And I used the new border from our hexagons. These are our brand new sunflower field stamps. They're our layering set for this release. And here's an example of what it looks like all done up. It comes with 1 flower, 1 leaf, and 2 little bumblebees that layer. And I created this shaped card. There's a free cut file available on our blog. And it perfectly fits with the dies from this set. So you can die cut it out on your silhouette and then layer the dies over the top. But if you don't have a silhouette, we also have a free JPEG for you. For this card, I used our new hexagon dies, and I cut them out of like printer paper and use it as a template to line up these and pop them up, and it goes really well with our quilted hexagon stamps that we previously released. And here's a better example of that new Moroccan circle embossing folder. You can really see it well when it's all inked up. And I paired our new sunflowers with the jar, and I stamped it in 2 layers, once on acetate and once on the background to give it more dimension. Here's a really fun little card. I created a wreath with some burlap, and I mounted my hello on extra layers of craft paper to give it more dimension. And then I'm just showing there how I mounted the sunflowers on a bunch of foam tape to match the height of that burlap. Here I've created sort of a sunflower field using our new stamps, and I popped up that one in the center to give it a little extra dimension, and then I stamped my background with our background basics polka dots and stamped my sentiment on a little banner from our Little Angels dies. And here's our brand new super duper superhero set. I have really fallen in love with these little kids here. Here's just a basic card using our new comic strip dies that also came out with this. So this is a different version of comic strip frames, and then it comes with, I think, 6 new speech bubbles with 2 different ways to do the little bubbles, and then 4 little companion stars, which I've used on another card coming up here. Here's an example of it just all filled up, and I had an extra, so I thought I'd show you how I did the back. I just cut the paper a little bit larger and glue it to the back with a glue pin. And here's a card using those same guys with the fluffy cloud border dies. And I thought it would be fun to cut it out of an unexpected color, so I used our halftone papers from our heroic halftones together with those stitched fluffy clouds there, and have those here all separated out. It occurred to me I didn't show you that I also cut a second one out of black, and then I cut a third one out of black foam so that I could pop it up and make it have a little extra dimension. So for this card, I used that cityscape border that I had showed earlier together with the speech bubbles. And here's how the die cut comes. You can either cut a second one out of another color and not pop out all the little windows, or I've provided on the product page a free download where you can cut it out on your silhouette, and it perfectly aligns and is cut just a tad smaller than the actual die cut, so that it doesn't overlap or you can't see it from the front. For this card, I've created a little spotlight. I started by inking up the whole thing in Salty Ocean, and then I applied little ovals using our Sunny border dies, and I inked it again in Mermaid Lagoon Distress ink and created these little spotlights that with a masking material and inked over it one more time with blueprint sketch, and then I went over it in the dark areas that would be further away from the spotlight with some black soot, and that gave my spotlights a little glow. And then I used this Sharpie paint pen to flick on some white stars and add little polka dots and stuff for a bit of sparkle in my spotlights. For this card, I used those same stitched fluffy cloud border dies to create like a frame for my shaker. And here I am just sharing how I have the exact same speech bubble, but I used 2 different little, I don't even know what you call those, little tiny clouds to form their thought. And so I used the little cityscape border there on this card, and then I had some leftover, so I used it on this comic style card. And this one uses 3 of the 6 speech bubbles for a true like funny paper kind of style card. And then I have the fluffy clouds there with I used some spring sunburst paper in the background. For this card, I used our sliding window dies to create a really fun slider. This is where I use those little extra stars from our new comic strip dies. And you can turn this card into an actual card, or you can just leave it as a flat card and have your message only be inside, which I did for this one. Really fun Oh, and just a little note on there it looks like he's flying. I wanted to show you that. But on the back, I wanted to make sure he was really stable because he's barely glued on there. So I added a little pumpkin from another die set to get him really good and glued on. And up next is our new Cruisin Critter set, which is a really fun little 3x4 stamp set filled with, I don't know how many critters are in there, like 7. So I've created this card here with our Woodsy, what is that called? Woodland border dies, and then custom made my own street and filled it in with some white paint pen like I did on the other one. And then I did the trees and clouds and everything with our comic strip everyday dies and used that speech bubble again. And here's like a day and night version using the cityscape. So for this card, I used little party hats from our Party Pups and Forever, or was that Perfect Birthday, and then I used the balloons from our Oceans of Joy, and I'm just showing there how I popped them up, but I taped on some thread on the backs of them to make it really look realistic. And then I used that border in the stamp set to make a realistic street, and I'm just pointing out there how I had made an error, so I was able to cover it up. This one is like the nighttime version of that last card. I used some Stickles glitter glue to give the sky some sparkle and make it look like stars. And then up next we have our new Plain Awesome stamps. This one comes with a really fun old fashioned airplane along with 5 little critter pilots and a couple clouds and the little loop-de-loo and the little air for the propeller and a banner and lots of fun punny sentiments that mix and match. For this card, I kind of went straight away from the black background and did a navy blue for my city. And then I added the propeller there with a little wind. And this one's a really fun card where the little plane has flown in a heart shape. And this looks kind of intimidating, but it honestly was a super fast card to make because of those 3 little clouds that come already attached. I was able to sketch with a pencil line some hearts, and I just stamped them repeatedly on my background, and then I came back and filled it in with some of this Neon Amplify in white by Sukaneko. It has a really cool tip. This is one of my favorite like kind of snow type pins that I've ever used. You just apply it. You can either let it dry or heat it up right away with a heat gun. For this card, I used our new fluffy cloud border dies twice. It's a long card, so I tried my best to line it up and repeat them. So I ran it through once, and then I tried to find the edge and just taped it with some washi tape and ran it through a second time. I use these little birds from our seasonal trees. And these hearts are from the set. Just stamped them and colored them with some Copics, and then I went back over it with some glossy accents by Ranger. For this card, my sentiment was a little too long to fit on one banner, so I thought, what the heck, I'll put 2. And I used some green embellishments there on the bottom because it was feeling a little empty. Well, that wraps up our Fall 2019 release. You'll find links for all the products shared below. Thanks so much for hanging with me. Bye-bye.